are approaching the mid-year right here on EconoChat. Let's talk business with Mr. Daniel Steinman on your power station Energy 100. Calendar year versus fiscal year is what we spoke about before we went on that short break. But now looking at the growth estimates, Mr. Daniel Steinman, if we're looking at the 3 months that we are in before we are gonna hit the mid-year, comparing to last year this time, did we do better last year, or do you see
you've
something?
You've got me really confused now. Let's try and untangle all the spaghetti.
Okay.
And put them down in straight lines.
All right.
I am often asked, do I agree with the Bank of Namibia's growth estimates? And obviously I don't. I don't want to say that our central bank does not know what it's doing, because obviously in a certain way, I'm sure it does. But I'm not so convinced that what the central bank does is always to the advantage of you and I, of the ordinary, average, everyday Namibian who's struggling to come by, and it's a struggle to make a living and to exist, and we can carry on like this for hours, but I would assume 90% of the population is experiencing the same sort of difficult conditions.
I'm sure.
It's all this. We hear all this talk on the radio and on TV and in newspapers and in social media of the economy is doing so well, and we found oil, and there's green hydrogen, and there are new gold mines, and uranium. The price of uranium is off the charts. It has exploded, but we don't see it. And now, why is this? Now we need to go back to last year, and we need to recap what we said in the beginning of our discussion, that we are only now into the 3rd month of the fiscal year. The government's year, the budget year, starts on the 2nd of April. So it's April, May, June, and we're not even at the end of June yet. So the time to see a change or an effect from the spending that comes through the budget, which is more than 40% of the consumer side of the Namibian economy, is very significant. We don't see that. It's not happening, but because the period is too short. So if we look at last year, the initial estimates of the Bank of Namibia, I'm talking about 2023 February, March, just before or just at the time of the tabling of the budget, they were penciling in 3.8% GDP growth. Now you have to remember that a GDP growth measurement is always a comparison to the previous year. And achieving a 3.8% growth rate in 2023 was no big deal, because in 2022 the growth rate was dismal, and in 2021 it was negative. And I've explained that effect when you measure from, it's called a low base effect. You've fallen flat so hard that when you pick yourself up just a little bit, statistically it looks like a lot, but it's not. But the growth rate, the estimated growth rate, was 3.8%. Then later in the year, now remember, this is the key concept, later in the year, they upgraded that to 4%. And what happened eventually, it transpired that the actual growth rate in 2023 was 4.4%. Now that is significant. We can build an economy on growth rates above 3.6, 3.7, 3.8%. When your economy, when your GDP grows by 4% or more, you say, thank you, Lord. It's a blessing. So then we look at, remember what I said, pay attention to the word later. Why is that? Because the salt and pepper effect of the budget needs time. It's like when you bake a really good, nice party bread. You don't bake a good bread in 15 minutes. You need a full hour and a half to bake a good bread, because it has to raise and it has to it sort of has to grow in the oven. It's the same with the economy. You don't bake a good economy in just 3 months after the tabling of the budget. You know, it really has to grow. You have to see the effect, and what you need to see that effect is time. And seeing that we are only into the 3rd month now of the fiscal year, there's no way that we can expect the results now. But let's get back to what is expected, and the Bank of Namibia, the growth rate that they've got penciled in for this year is 3.6%. And I personally think that is conservative. They are intentionally downgrading the growth rate compared to last year because of this low base effect. The more you grow, the less the low base effect becomes. You know, but you also get the opposite of a low base effect, and that's called a high base effect. You know, where the distortion in your statistics cannot be avoided, but you need to be aware of it. You need to realize what the implications are from these various statistical effects and how it clouds your perception of the economy. Because the 3.6% for this year, I think, is obviously too conservative. The economy, in my mind, is going to grow very close to 4% again. I think the only question will be, will we exceed the 4%? Because remember, last year it wasn't expected. Nobody realized it is growing so fast. And we only learned this in the budget speech this year. So we only became aware of that accelerated growth on the 28th of February this year. So for that reason, I expect when we get to the end of September, the picture is going to look remarkably different. And I'll explain now why.
Let's go for that short break.